So this sort of comes out from the conversation we had last week, which was show us your favorite website. And so in talking with Larry afterwards, Larry was saying, hey, we don't have anybody for next week. Could you go into more detail and more depth into the website? So I said, of course, we'll do that. And so that's what today's presentation is about, is the Canadian Badger and Memorabilia Club. It's interesting because we have actually just merged. Now I'll give you a little bit of history about that. So in the beginning, let's go back, the Canadian badging sort of group, the Scouts have been trading badges ever since we could remember. So that's not a big deal. The adults got involved in a big way in 1975. That was the first sort of discussion coming out of a World Jamboree. They thought, okay, maybe we should have some type of unity. The International Badgers Club had been formed much earlier than that. A bunch of Canadians started getting involved, and there were about 12 of them who got together and said, okay, let's form ourselves a club. And they called themselves the Canadian Badgers Club. And their first, of course, the first thing you do is when you create a club and you have a swap meet, you create a badge for it. So this is the original badge for the swapperee for that initial group. And it was sort of held at a camp, and they put together the beginning charter, and the whole sort of system ran from there. They began with 0001. It's 4 digits right now, and we're up to about almost 2,000 members who have been members, and everybody gets a unique identification. But they started off with 0001. There's one gentleman who's still actively involved in the club, Dave Bushell, and he was 0004. Dave started as a 18-year-old rover in 1975 and has been ongoing since then, and he's probably will be part of the Canadian contingent to the World Jamboree in Korea as well too. So this is the beginning part of our sort of club here in Canada. So we do have the International Badgers Club. We had the Canadian Badgers Club in 1975. In 2000, another 14 people who didn't really want to trade badges per se, which were district and area and council badges. It was very specific on what the Badgers Club was collecting. That would be the same as your council, your Order of the Arrow, and your areas. So area, council, Order of the Arrow. That was what our Badgers Club was focused on, was districts, areas, provincials, and I'll show you why that breaks down into the website in a second. The Scouting Memorabilia Club of Canada thought, well, we don't really care about district badges. We care about all the other memorabilia stuff. So, including proficiency badges, which the Badgers Club didn't have anything to do with. So they started putting together a website and a club, and they called themselves the Scouting Memorabilia Collectors Club of Canada, because I don't know why, we're just really good at building titles that just sound really, really unique and we shortened it to the SMCCC. So anyways, that started in 2000. In 2019, there was a discussion of merging the Canadian Badgers Club and the SMCC, and that has gone through at this point. And so I'm going to show you the website. Membership to the club is a paltry $10. And you do need to actually be an active member to get into the first 2 sections of what I'm going to show you. In the 3rd section, you have full reign and freedom to wander around, not being a member of the club. So that's a good thing as well too. So we'll start getting into the site here, and I'll show you what it's going to look like. So this is just the application form. Down here, there's the rate. Like I said, all the information is here. I'll share this with you later. There's some really cool parts to it as well too. If you want a magazine, you get an electronic magazine that comes out as well too all the time. When you come to the front page, you're going to see this. And so it'll be forum, gallery, and join us. The join us has the application form. The forum begins with just discussions. So there's open discussions on what's happening, upcoming events, badge identification, new badges. If you're a club members forum, and you can click here and it's just direct conversation. This is really good because if we have our own sort of, especially for some of you folks, if you come across Canadian stuff and you are a member, this is where you would post it and say, hey, I have no idea what this is. Does anybody have sort of an idea? So we come across all types of stuff from time to time. Here's one with a blue 5 and a Canadian. Nobody knows what it was. It showed up on eBay. We try to get the information out before anybody, gives us a little bit of helping hands with this type of stuff. There's always some really cool stuff and stuff that we're not even knowing what it is, like, and the guys usually can be able to, so here, this was scouting in Antiano, so Netherlands Antilles. So the hobby ourselves, we try to have some really good information, and we usually can be able to find what we're sort of looking for. But this is part of where we really want to get into, and this is I'll start with the Scoutalog, because this is the proficiency ones, and I was sort of pointing it out to you the last time. If we start off with just, we'll give you some, we're getting to the point of adding as much that we can actually put in here. And so in the Beaver program, which is our youngest program, you won't see a whole lot of badges. We are starting to do progression and awards. And so when you click on any of these type of pages, this will show you our Beaver program. Now, this is actually program badges and not the district or area. So you sort of have an understanding of what the Beaver program is. Where it really helps for us, I think most of us, would be in the Scout program badges. I showed this to Michael Feinberger last time, and this was the notes on dating badges. And so you can click on here, and I told Michael that I had never seen the serge cloth. We do have it here as 1909 serge cloth badges, and then the felt cloth, no wording, is 1910. And Michael and I feel that even though it's written here, and this would all be coming out of the UK, these would be some of the discussions we would want to have. It really gets to the point of taking a look at, the color on the back. We get to discussions of what is the eras and the coloring of the back of the badges. Quite often they were either a white, a black, or a tan on the back, and we go into the information on that to help people try to figure out exactly what the what the key would be for it. So that sort of gave you the information. This then breaks it down into what we call the our first class, second class, all of the different information that you're looking for, King Scouts, Queen Scout, the patrol leader badges, which we used. This is all the varieties that we used up until them being discontinued in '68. One of the ones everybody tries to get is this one over here, which is the wartime. The wartime is a composite material. It's actually wood and sawdust versus metal, as all the metal was being utilized for the war effort at that point. It gives us some great opportunities to have that discussion. These were actually sewn on the hat, as the lugs weren't strong enough to actually hold them on the Stetsons. And where I showed that to an extent, if I take a look at the first class badges, these would be the ones that you were given. This is a first class war issue one, and you can tell automatically that they're war issue because they're all printed on canvas, because again, all of the embroidery shops were closed, and so we were doing printed on canvas, to the point that even the buttons that were being used were all Bakelite as well too. This helps both us in the collecting and probably you in the United States with, if you were members of this, that you can tell automatically right away sort of some of the eras and information. Even our war service badges that we utilized in the war, I was lucky. I actually just picked up this 1914 strip. These are really difficult to find. There's a 600 days war service that's up for auction at the moment. It'll probably go for about $500 to $600 for that one. But it does have the 1914, 1918, and this is the war issues for the Second World War. These ones on the bottom here. So we've pretty well put all of the information in here, so it's very easy to sort of figure out all of our language strips. For example, there are over 150 files on language strips alone in Canada, as we have provided everything from Braille. You'll see all the languages. There's some unique ones, Chippewan. We do have quite a few native language. And going back to the Scout badges, I'll show you that because there's something that's somewhat interesting in regards to the Scout program. And if I go down to the bottom, our Arctic members who were in the Northwest Territories and the Yukon at the time, we actually created badges just specifically for them to earn. And so you'll see the Carver badge, the Dog Driver badge, the Fur Trapper badge, Hunter, and you guys are going to make fun of me, but we did have an Igloo Builder badge for the Northwest Territories and Yukon, Kayak Builder, Lamp Maker, Sewer. The sewer was actually sewing of skins, Skinner. This is called an Ulu knife, and then a Snowmobile Driver merit badge. So these were only given to Arctic regions, Scouts in the Arctic regions. They could not be earned by anybody south of the Northwest Territories or the Yukon. They're a little harder to find. They are available. Each one of these badge, though, if we take a look at the proficiency badges on the S, because S tends to be the most, it'll go through the safety man versions and all of the different types of those. And when you sort of click on it, it'll actually give you a little bit of information about it. It'll provide you, what year it was actually extinct. Okay, so it was no longer made, the year of the issue of this badge. So when it says extinct, what it means is that this version of it on the sort of the surge material here, or on the felt, that's when it went extinct in 1927. Then it went to the sort of the surge material, then it went to a woven, and then this was the last version of it. The opportunity for these ones is that as long as you know what the name of the badge is, because you'll see the safety badge all the way up to this point has had numerous changes, numerous design features, numerous different eras. This was the last one we're sort of currently utilizing right now in our merit badges or achievement badges. But again, it'll have every single one of the badges that we've known to exist. So there's a snowmobile driver for the Northwest Territories badge or the Arctic badge. There was a snowmobiler badge created for those who were south, because there's not much to do here in Canada besides build igloos and snowmobile. I'm taking a couple of pot shots at ourselves here. But and the S version, all types of different eras. The swimming badges will show you again, here's one of those printed badges that was a World War II issue. Any of the experimental ones that we came out with, we get to the point of being, sort of a square corner or rounded corners. And we really get sort of, as you guys were saying in the last meeting, really particular on exactly what type of badges we're looking at. So these were the sort of the proficiency badges. There's some cool things in here. We actually teach you how to do a bushman's thong. You guys going, what is a bushman's thong? A bushman's thong is actually, these were the cords that we utilized, the all-round cords in green and yellow, red and white. It usually meant how many of your achievement badges you had earned. This was a bushman's thong. A bushman's thong, you had to earn so many of the actual bushman merit badges to achieve your bushman's thong. This sort of disappeared in the late 60s by 68. But we actually give you the pamphlet on actually how to tie the bushman's thong. So it's a cool little picture. That's what it sort of looks like. Again, we give you great photographs of it. Talks about, when it was utilized from the 1931 up until extinct in 68. So those are the pages have tons and tons of information. So if you see these chains, because quite often you're going to see these chains, there's a bronze, there's a silver, and a gold. Those were Canadian achievement badges, which either told you that the youth had earned, I think it was 8 achievement badges, 15 achievement badges, 21. We do have the books that tell you exactly how many you would have needed to earn to get those type of awards. But the youth would wear them on their uniform as well too. Even some of the what we sort of later came in, these are our leadership. This is youth leadership badges. And so again, we show you exactly sort of what the youth would deal with. This was Wolf Cub instructors. These were scouts. And at this period of time, prior to 68, our scouting program went from the age of 11 to 18. Ventures is brought in 64, 68. It's a new program and it goes from 14 to 18. So it basically cuts the scouting program in half. So the scouts go from 11 to 14, and then Ventures went from 14 to 18, and then Rovers 18 and over. That's our current program at the moment, and that's been in existence since 68. So this is all of the sort of the Scout program, Venture program, Rovers, Beavers, all these sort of information. We do have honors and awards. So if you are collecting our honors and awards, these are photos of sort of some of the ones that we can earn. Award for fortitude is given to scouts who have a serious disease or an impairment who continue to do scouting. Quite often youth who have cancer and continue to do scouting, those awards will be given to the youth as well as leaders as well too. Bar to the Medal of Merits, these are some of the awards given to adults for their hard work. And in 2007, Scouting created the 100-year medal. This was provided to all Scouters who was felt through national were actually doing above and beyond what they're sort of were doing within Scouting, and this was awarded to them. We also have these ones, which are the pre-1935 medals. Prior to 1935, the swastika was used in both Britain and Canada. They were used as thanks badges and Medal of Merit. This is the one that gets us into problems all the time, because this is the one that if you're not aware of it, they start saying, well, oh, look at that. UK Scouts and Canadian Scouts were actually attached to the Hitler Youth movement. Nothing like that whatsoever. This was an award that was provided to the Canadian youth prior to the Nazis actually utilizing that symbol. In fact, in quite a few of the early manuals that Kipling wrote for the Scouting associations, the swastika is used in that in the 1910s, 1920s, and 1930s. So if you see these medals, the Canadians in the UK quite often are looking for these medals, because quite an awful lot of these were destroyed after the Nazi Party sort of took over that sort of symbolism for it. It's sort of going along the lines of the discussion that Loudon has in the Da Vinci Code of how symbols are taken out of context. We are looking at developing our Scout catalogs so that you can actually click on the Scout catalogs, and that there'll be the pages that are there as well too. So this is a new sort of one that we're working on. These are the covers, but we've also, so for example, the 27 spring one, there's the whole booklet of the 1927 catalog from Canada. This goes a long way in helping us date items, figuring out when it showed up in a catalog, when it was removed from a catalog, so that we can actually sort of date and understand when some of these items were occurring. Like I said, this is still in progress. We're still working on it, but an awful lot of the key items there, especially in the program, this all came out of the Scouting Memorabilia Collectors Club of Canada. This is the one that sort of, we looked at all the items that were not, quote, badges per Canada or districts, areas, that type of information. If we go to that, actually, if I go to that section, which is home to the Badgers catalog. This is our Canadian national events, and then broken down by provinces. And that we also have, Canada's interesting is we have more than one Scout association. We actually have the Association de Scouts du Canada, which is currently functioning. That's our Quebec brethren, shall we say. It was the Catholic, basically the Catholic Scout Association out of Quebec. We also have the Association of Adventurers de Baden-Powell. That's a French version as well too. And then a new one that has just created was the Baden-Powell Service Association of Canada. They're sort of an offshoot. They're trying to go back to traditional scouting, so we're trying to collect all of their badges as well too. If we pick on one of the Ontario collections here, which is the largest of all of our districts and councils and areas, the first one you're going to see is the provincial and council. So if you click on that, here are all the provincial badges that have adorned our uniforms, right down to the Ontario 1A, all the way into 2010. In 2010, our councils changed from provinces to one of 20 councils. And in Ontario, we have Battlefields Council, Central Escarpment Council, Greater Toronto Council, Northern Ontario Council, Shining Waters, Tri-Shores, and Voyageur. So those are the councils that we have out of the 20 in Canada. But each one of these council badges is unique and distinct, even though, for example, if I show you the Toronto one here, you'll see that we created this badge. And then when we went to redo it, we added the trillium on the Greater Toronto Council badge. If you look at the Shining Waters, which is always an interesting one, Shining Waters, this is in a full embroidery. This is a super embroidered, very fine embroidered. And then we went to sort of a domed shape. And we'll make mistakes all the time as well too. The Tri-Shores badge here, this one has a dash and this one has a period. So, we get that finicky about our badges as well as you guys do. So this is sort of the provincial council. If we go back, then we break them all down into districts as well too, starting with A's. Agincourt is one of those huge ones where there's been over 7 different districts badges for the Agincourt district. But we'll also show you non-listed badges that are in the badgers. This one was cut from an older badge, and so it shows up in the hobby from time to time. But we're letting people know that this is not really truly a district badge. But if you want to collect it and put it in your collection, you're more than welcome to. We're just saying it's not cataloged in our district. We have the Algonquin district, and if you actually click on these badges, you'll see the ones on the bottom will be sort of in a film rolls type of thing, and you can very quickly see the differences. So you're actually looking here at the wavy black lines at the Algonquin district, because the next one doesn't have wavy black lines, it has straight black lines. And so those became 2 different district Algonquin badges. And Ancaster, same. In the Ancaster, it has a white, and then it has a gold, and then it has a gold without the outline of the arrowhead. And we'll get to the point of being vertical versus horizontal stitching, all types of information. And again, it'll tell you down here as well too. Now, if I show you Atikokan, which is one of the tougher ones to find here in Ontario, you're going to see these little stars down here. The stars tell you how rare they are. So this is a 4-star. And 5-star is the rarest. So the Atikokan is one of the rarer badges, and the dollar value translates into, a 1 is pretty common, so 5 to 10. A 2, a little more difficult, $20. A 3, anywhere from 20 to 100. Once you get into the 4s and 5s, then we're talking large money for the Canadian, because these are really small badges compared to your council strips, guys. Like these are, like this is probably, it tells you the size in regards to just, on the pixel size. but these are usually about 1.5, maybe 1 3/4 inch squares. Though that's about the size of our district badges and our council badges over the years. So, you know, when we're talking about $700 for a little badge like this, and we don't have a huge collectors group here in Canada. I'll show you a quick one. Ontario, Lynn Valley, one of the first ones that I really started taking a look at. London here. I picked it up off a uniform. Oh, sorry, my mistake, Lynn Valley. I wanted to go here. Just so everybody knows as well too, Canada has now put a moratorium on creating anything with a native design on it. So you will see an awful lot of our badges over the years have had native designs. For example, this is Brant. That was supposed to be a Mohawk native. There's one is much better of a Mohawk native. Blue Mountain is a full headdressed Sioux. Blue Mountain, Ontario is just north of where I live here. And there's been no Sioux native Canadians ever there. This little Big Creek is no more than, I want to say, 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch. It's printed on felt. You'll see that this is a 5-star. I found this on a uniform at a flea market, bought the whole shirt for $20. The badge then sold for $1,200. So when, you know, you need to know sort of what you have from time to time. And I think one of the best things I'm sort of showing to my American brethren is some of the badges you guys are seeing down there are probably some pretty rare stuff that, again, we're not seeing up here from time to time. And it pays to sort of understand what you're sort of looking at. Because again, this little felt one, it's felt. It was sewn on a uniform from the 1960s. When the uniform gets washed, these little felt badges disintegrate and fall right off. So not many of them were actually kept, and not many of them were actually saved. Most of the badges that I was showing you earlier in regards to the Scoutalog badges, those early felt badges were on wool uniforms, and the Scouts actually had to take off the badges every time they washed their wool shirts. So the Scouts had to get into learning how to take the badges off and sewing them back on. What they started doing and creating were false sleeves. So you will see from time to time, all of those badges, the merit badges and the achievement badges, on a false piece of material, so that the Scouts could actually just take off that false piece of material with all their badges on it, remove the whole item, and then be able to wash their uniform, and then be able to sew all the sew just the large patch with their badges on it. These are all of, we broke down all of our districts and councils for everybody to take a look at in regards to our provinces. And if you need help from time to time, give myself or any of our Canadian brethren, if you need to sort of say, hey, I found this badge, not too sure what province it's from, you guys can give us a shout and we can sort of give you a hand. Each one of the pages, so this is Newfoundland, they actually have their Jamboree badges on there as well too. So these are all the provincial Jamborees that have been held in Newfoundland. Now these are specific as provincial Jamborees, not national Jamborees. Again, this sort of helps you out in regards to trying to figure out whether it was a national Jamboree or whether it was an actual provincial. The Canadian national items not only carries the items that are attached to the badges, but all of our auxiliary badges too, that would be from a national point of view. So these are all the badges that we have worn on our neckerchiefs as Canadians. And what I mean by that is on an international event, these are the badges that are on our international neckerchiefs as we participate. This was up until the 1990s. And so you'll see the red and gold Canada, but this one is from the 1950s. This one is 55. This was on the 55 necker for Canada. These became the from 55 to 60s. This was utilized in 63. And then you sort of see the number of points. So we understand this was so if I click this one, again, it shows you the rarity. This is I believe a 4-star. This was during our national flag debate here in Canada. Scouts Canada picked this one. They thought this was going to be the winning entry in our Canadian flag. And so Scouts Canada went and created these badges. And at the last moment, the federal government decided that this was not going to be the flag of Canada, that this was going to be the flag of Canada. So for a very short period of time, less than 6 months, this flag was on Scout Canada uniforms, and then it was removed when we decided that this was going to be our national flag. This is the one that predates that. This is called our ensign, or the Canadian flag. And this was utilized up until we adopted this as our Canadian flag. So you'll see this on quite a few of the international uniforms from Canada as well too, and that's where it comes from. We also have our different sponsoring organizations. So the Salvation Army is all the badges that we've utilized here. They have the Canadian flag back. The LDS is the Latter-day Saints, and the badges that we've utilized over the years for Latter-day Saints. These are all the rover flashes that were utilized on the uniforms. This gets to be really difficult when you start seeing the Scouts one. And here's the Boy Scout ones. And they start right here. And this is one of the first ones from 2016, and all the way to our current one, which is Scouts Canada, which is this one here. This was the last one we utilized. The new uniforms have all of that information already embroidered on the shirts. The Sea Scout stuff, I know Mitch Darwin is very important on that. Our Deep Sea Scouts, these are some really rare badges. The Deep Sea Scouts was an offshoot for scouting, and this was sort of both scuba diving as well as the sailing badges that we were utilizing. We also had a couple of, I would say, I know BSA has some international districts that you have, the Far East Council. Canada has done that over the years as well too. This is our Scouts Canada Hong Kong badge, still a group in existence. These were our Scouts Canada's badges in areas that Germany, Radala, and you'll see a couple of those that we've utilized over the years. This is the Anglicans badges from the religious sponsorship groups, and then the Catholics. The miscellaneous badges are our national centennial badges. So in Centennial 67, we created some, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee for 60. We also had basically 5 years, we've been having sort of a national badge commemoration of different programming. The 100 years of rover scouting, which was in 2018, I believe. The centennial of our Cub program. And then this is the last one, which is our Venturers 50 years, which just occurred. So those, we try to keep track of all of those type of badges. So if you see any of those type of things, that's sort of what we're sort of looking in regards to the centennials. And then what we have are the national event ones. And this section here is our Canadian National Jamborees, our Rover Moots, our Venture events, and the Canadian Cub Jamborees. So our Canadian National Jamborees, this is every single badge from our Canadian National, not every single one. This page specifically just manages the official badge, as well as any subcamp badges. Personnel, group badges, all of those type of things, they're on a separate website. Curtis Moffat, CJ badges, he's done a fantastic job trying to host every single badge that was ever created for a Canadian Jamboree. But this one is just our national, what was the participant, what was the actual badge you could buy at the trading post, and what were the subcamp badges. So that's specifically to this one on our national events. These are just the scout ones. So all of the scout events, subcamps, going up to the last one we just had, which was in 2017 in the Maritimes. This was the badge, and this was staff or offer of service, and these were all the subcamps. And then if there were any of the large trading badges, those are available on here as well too, so you can see what they would look like, even to the point of there's a picture of a 1-piece versus a picture of the 10-piece badges from the World or Canadian Jamborees. Pretty self-explanatory through here. Some of the Northwest Territory badges are some of our favorite badges. They're just fun badges. They created an awful lot of map badges. So, and I'll just show you what I mean by a map badge. Is on the first one, this is what the sort of badge looked like. And then you had to find all the regions for it and sew the regions on to make the map look like this. So those were actually regions that the scouts in the Arctic and Northwest Territories, theoretically, these were supposed to be sewn on your uniform. I think scout leaders did this because nobody would have wanted to sew that massive, large Baffin region onto your uniform. But some of the more unique badges are from the Northwest Territories and the Yukon. There's some really cool pieces. They did an awful lot of silks. What I mean by silks is they look like this. The early badges in Canada were very fine printed silk screen or silk embroidery, very similar to what the UK and Australia utilized. These sort of just fell out of favor by the 1970s, but this is the type of badges that were created for an awful lot of the Northwest Territories and the Yukon badges. The last thing I was going to show you here is just in regards to, we've looked at the Scoutalog badges, the badges member events here, regions, federation, councils, and districts. And this is the fun one. This is the one you guys can look around all you want. Some of the more interesting ones is our Trees for Canada. And this is the one that I believe we did a presentation on. So here's the Trees for Canada. This has every single Trees for Canada badge on there from the earliest one of 1972. The variations, the Winnipeg ones of 73, 74 are extremely tough to find. You're going to see those. And then, you know, these little red and white ones were extremely, if you don't know what they are and they show up in your boxes, the scouts from Canada or scouters from Canada who try to collect these are some of the most difficult ones we can try to find into the Trees for Canada program, which, you know, you're probably seeing these show up in your dollar bins or 50-cent bins. We did have some early Trees for Canada district stuff and we tried to collect as much of that as possible in this page. So this is sort of a collection of the public view for everything. The camp badges are some of the more unique ones. If you know the name of the camp, we're pretty sure that we have every single one of the badges that is from that camp. I showed you the last one was the Halliburton camp, which is one of the bigger camps that our membership love collecting. These go, you'll see these on eBay going for anywhere from $200 to $500 per badge. Again, you might see these ones show up. An awful lot of Americans have been coming to this camp over the years. By troops. And so all of these sort of, these are mostly flocked. They're not embroidered. It's basically printed flocked on a sort of silk. They disintegrate pretty quickly. So to try to find these in great shape, always a challenge for us. We've tried to put the nicest pictures that we have of this area. And you'll see some of these are basically printed on felt. So these are some really interesting ones as well too. These go back to the 40s and 50s. Most of the camp, though, like our boom years were the 1960s, and that's where we had the biggest growth in some of those. If you're out in the British Columbia and the Oregon areas, you might have been to Camp Bing. They hold the Pacific Coast Jamboree up there. These are some early ones from the Camp Bing in '68. This is right on the coast of British Columbia. It's a beautiful camp if you ever get up there as well too. And then the other one I sort of was mentioning was Tamaracuda. Tamaracuda is in Montreal. It's been a huge camp over the years. Again, with an awful lot of Americans coming to that camp as well too. You'll see the early Tamaracuda badges going back into the 1960s. At the end, we actually follow in with some of the pennants that might have been utilized in the early part of the era as well too. We're also adding now, postcards and any of the ephemera from these camps as well too to the website, so that you can see what some of the stuff was sort of attached to. One of the other things is our Canadian Armed Forces and Europe scouting events, but I wanted to show you because our actual Scouting Association in the Badgers catalog, we do have what's called CAF. And CAF is down here, which is the Canadian Armed Forces Europe badges. And they're very specific. These were the regular ones. These might show up quite often, especially with Americans, because an awful lot of the events in Germany in the 1960s and 1970s, Germany, Canada, and the United States, our scouting associations did an awful lot of things together. So you might see these badges showing up from time to time. These are extremely rare on the Canadian side. We try to find these, but almost all of these badges here will be either a 4 or a 5 because they just are so difficult to find here in Canada. So if you're seeing anything Scouts Canada or Boy Scouts with maple leaves on it and it's saying from Europe or France, it's probably our CAF badges, which these ones, some of the CAF don't have any distinguishing. So, the Baden West, which is a boar's head, you wouldn't notice that it's Canadian, except for this one here, which had the Canadian flag. But that's the only one you would actually notify. The other ones, the maple leaves tend to give it away. And frankly, I've shown you igloos, I've shown you snowmobiles. We do put beavers on an awful lot of our badges as well too. So this was the red patch region of Canada with the beaver as well too. So that's something that I would think that from an American point of view should keep an eye out for those type of badges, because they would show up quite often with Americans who were in Europe during the 60s and 70s and were with the Scouting Association of either BSA, because you would have been doing the same camps and events that we would have been doing at that point as well too. We're actually starting to do the guide badges as well too, the Canadian Girl Guide badges, and we'll get to more of that. These are Scout shop, like this just gets crazy. These are Baden-Powell sketches. This is the Apple Day program, 150th anniversary, centennial badges, jacket badges, which are massive, large. I told you that our Scout popcorn badges, and you guys can come take a look at this free of charge because this one is open to everybody. But these are all the Trails and popcorn badges, and they are completely different than your American ones up till this point here. I think these early ones might be the same, but then we sort of get into the 1994, and even prior to that, they start changing the badges. So you might see some of the Trails and popcorn completely different than what you're seeing down there. So you might see those who like to collect this type of stuff might see different things that going, oh, this doesn't look like anything that we have here in the United States. It's probably because it's the Canadian version of them. National staff, we're getting into some of the group badges, Badger Canadian display teams, mostly at our Canadian Jamboree, at the World Jamboree. Northern Lights Society, the Northern Lights Society was made up of, it was a program to try to win over large donors. And so if you became part of the Northern Lights Society, it meant you probably gave Scouts Canada something in the neighborhood of more than $5,000 to $10,000 as a donor, you were then made a member of the Northern Lights Association. It didn't last long. I think the last one was 2007. But those are some of the tougher ones to get because, again, you would have had to give an awful lot of money. Scout Service Corps. This is interesting because in the United States, there's a huge Service Corps group, starting out with the Chicago's World Fair. We actually followed that through as well too. Our Canadian National Exhibit had service, and then this is the 67, which were blue, and then in 68 they continued with it and they made them green. So if you were at Expo 67 or at Man in His World from 68, those were the badges that were sort of presented to the youth who were actually working the program. And the Canadian National Exhibit is one of the largest running sort of national services. And we've been running a service corps out of there for a very long time, since the 50s and 60s. All types of information. If there's enough badges that we sort of can create, this one is mostly coming out of the Scout catalogs. These are the shields. There's versions of it which says Boy Scouts. By 1970, 74, we're changing our name to Scouts Canada. So you're seeing an awful lot of these badges are changing. But this is the full set of shields that we created in our catalogs, showing all the type. And these were just blanket badges that you would put on your coat or on your Scout blanket. But the varieties have come over to us as an awful lot of us collect them now, taking us back a little bit to our days when we were doing that. We then created a fleur-de-lis version of them versus the shields. So these are the fleur-de-lis versions. But again, if you guys find things and you're trying to figure out what exactly they are, this is a great page for you to sort of dig them up. These ones are the bullion, and these are our blazer. So if you were a scout leader, you had the option of wearing the uniform, or you could wear a blue blazer and would have one of these badges on your blazer. If you were working for national, you would also have this as well too. This was your national expectation that you would have this as on your blazer. Gray slacks, white shirt, blue blazer. Although in the 1970s, because the 1970s were just so great with colors, Scouts Canada changed all of their uniforms to gray slacks, gray shirt, and then maroon blazers. And so we had to actually make maroon blazer badges for that. So those were the maroon uniforms with stretchy belts. It's probably one of the worst uniforms ever created for adults ever. The only other thing I think at this point, sort of gone over a fairly comprehensive look at this. And I think that's about all. The last thing I just want to show you, because the magazine that we provide comes out 4 times a year. It looks like this. So for $10, you get all access, and then we provide you the magazine basically 3 times a year. It'll show you what our new badge is. So that's our new Memorabilia, the Canadian Badgers and Memorabilia Club badge that we just brought out. Then it'll tell you all the information, who our executive is, anybody who's gone home. I don't know if many of you know this gentleman here. Ralph Williams passed away. Ralph was a huge trader, collected lots of memorabilia over the years. He passed away. But then we talk about what's new in the hobby. What did we find that's different in districts, and whether it's being created as a new badge on the site or not. So those type of things, as well as what we're sort of doing, what some of the shows are, what's happening out around. The next one that we're going to have is November the 12th on Saturday at Hamilton. So anybody in the sort of northern United States, we do have a couple people from Boston come up, or sorry, Buffalo come up. They tend to take home some really good finds, because again, what you see down in the United States of Canadian stuff and not too sure what it is, we see an awful lot of it up here in Canada of American items, and we're not too sure what it is either. So And then these are, just trader pages. But at the end of it, it goes back to our variety catalog and what's the new updated information that's provided for you. And then the membership. And that's where I'll end up.